Hi, everybody. Richard Sher here with your final square off for 2023. And what a panel we have. We have attorney Billy Murphy. Here's a square off original panelists from back in the 1800s. Award-winning veteran news reporter, the amazing Jayne Miller, veteran talk show host, Jimmy Mathis, and our residential entrepreneur and financial expert, Tyrone Keys. All right, let's look back at the last year and look ahead at the new year. Jayne, what's a story you are thinking about?
2024 elections.
Specifically?
I mean, 2023 is here. It's about to come and go. And, it's a huge year politically in 2024, both locally, statewide, and then, of course, the presidential election. I mean, this is a monumental election year. I mean, many say that democracy's on the line in the national elections and in some of the local elections. It's a huge year, and it's going to be a major story, obviously, going into this year, into the new year.
Big story with the Orioles, just mentioning. Big story with Lamar and the Ravens. Let's see how they progress. What a year it's been for those two sports teams. Tyrone, pick a story.
Well, yeah, this is the most important election since the last one. I'm less inclined to get all hyped up about that, than I am what's going on the ground locally. All politics is local, so says Tip O'Neill. And we've got folks in Baltimore City, hardworking, tax-paying citizens who are basically wondering whether or not their car will be in front of their house next day when they got to go to work, whether or not they will be a victim of a carjacking. So as the General Assembly prepares to go back into session, I hope that they take with them the notion that, we got to pick a side here. Do we pick criminality or do we pick the hardworking men and women who are tax-paying, law-abiding citizens and make the city go with their tax dollars?
Great points, Tyrone.
Not just the city, Tyrone.
That's true,
Car
Jayne.
theft is an issue everywhere.
You're right, Jayne.
Carjackings are an issue everywhere.
I stand corrected.
And by the way, we can get back to this, but for the last couple of crime stat reporting cycles in Baltimore City by the police department, car thefts have been dropping.
I stand
They're
corrected,
still
Jayne.
way ahead of last year, but
Right.
over the last couple of cycles, they have been declining, which is good
You are
news.
absolutely right, Jayne. And I think that is a function of the metastasization of it into all of the other counties. You're right.
All right, guys, on Jimmy Mathis. Let's hear
Well,
from you.
I'm going to agree with Jayne. I think, look, we're staring down the primaries coming in May. I think very few people would have thought, again, I am a Trump supporter, but that he would be leading at this point in the primaries by 30 points. Sheila Dixon, who has tried this the past 2 times and lost, left under a cloud. There's a very real possibility that she beats Brandon Scott. I think the elections of 2024 are going to be the dominating story.
And Billy Murphy. Bill, what's on your mind?
About the situation in Ukraine and what's going to happen to Europe if we back away from full support for Ukraine. I'm concerned about whether or not the war in Israel and Palestine is going to spread to the region and ultimately into something even worse. I'm afraid about the new axis of evil with China and Russia and North Korea collaborating to maintain control of the waterways in the Far East, and whether Taiwan is going to be invaded. There are so many international issues that could affect us adversely.
Biden's had a really good run, hasn't he, Billy?
Pardon?
I said Joe Biden's had a really good run when it comes to foreign policy, hasn't he?
Well, he has a mixed record because he overestimated when he came out full throttle for Israel. And he didn't realize in the beginning that this was a provocation meant to create an extreme response in Israel. The provocation worked, And now Israel has to wonder whether or not Netanyahu is the correct leader for the future. Most say no, but in the meantime, he's doing tremendous damage by overreacting and causing worldwide outrage.
You know, it's funny. I was talking to my 16-year-old daughter, and I'm not throwing her under the bus on this, but she's probably at this point in her life as woke and as liberal as they come. She was a staunch Donald Trump hater, couldn't stand him. And she said to me the other day, she goes, "Dad, honestly, if I could vote, which she can't do for 2 more years, I still don't like him as a person, but I'd probably vote for Trump." What's happening in Israel right now, she's just beginning to pay attention to the foreign affairs and politics in general. And I think you have a younger generation right now that is tired of seeing the bloodshed, tired of seeing these wars. This did not happen under Trump. He's obviously losing the Jewish community with what's happening in Israel. And if you have an unmotivated younger base and you lose the Jewish vote, this is going to be problematic for the Democrats.
Yeah, and he's definitely.
And by the way, Tyrone, before you continue, I want to react to what you said about the Tip O'Neill situation. International politics is now local politics because people have access immediately for the first time in the history of the world to everything that's going on. And for the first time in the world, everybody's opinion matters. And that's not necessarily a good thing.
Well, look, Jim, Billy, you're right that, technology has shrunk the world. If you look, and back to your point about this conflict in the Middle East spreading, basically the Houthis have blockaded the Suez Canal, okay? And that has put the Biden administration in quite a pickle because do they use military strength to go in there and correct that problem and risk further escalation? All the while, all of that merchandise coming through there is interdicted, driving up prices for us here in America. So you're right.
Miss Jayne, you look very, very pensive.
Well, I 100% agree that with what's going on internationally is of paramount concern. And I'm not clear on what the leading Republican candidate intends to do, because he says a lot of things.
Jayne, you don't have to like.
And he gets very little mainstream coverage, by the way.
You gotta give Trump credit for one thing. All right, when it comes to foreign policy, all of this stuff ceased in the first 100 days. You had Russia that had invaded Ukraine. They were on the border. Crimea. They were on the border of Ukraine. That ceased. You never heard about ISIS.
Aligned with the Russians.
You never heard about ISIS again. Our largest Arab ally, which was Egypt, that was in shambles. You look at what was happening with Syria, Bashar al-Assad. You have to admit, under the Trump administration, from a foreign policy standpoint, things were a lot better than they are now.
He was very much aligned with Russia.
All of this ceased under his administration. You got to give credit.
Is that the answer? Let's
So
just team up with Russia and everything will be fine. Is that the answer?
Yeah, I agree with Jayne. You're overlooking the alternative, and the alternative, out of his own mouth, has become the Grim Reaper, and he is the harbinger of fascism. And fascism is where you take over dictatorship, take over the media, destroy democratic institutions in favor of a strong man who has the confidence of the lumpen proletariat and the dumb educated. And that's what
Let me ask you a question.
You're talking about tyranny. You have states that are taking the guy off the ballot. When you start losing free and open elections, you're literally living in a banana republic. So I don't want to hear about tyranny and dictatorship with what's going on right now in this.
Hold on. In a banana republic, law doesn't matter. In the United States, they struggle over whether law matters. And
hold on, Billy. Let me ask a question.
The law matters.
Hey guys,
let me ask a question of Billy and Jayne. Were you all cryogenically frozen between 2016 and 2020? Because as I recall it, there were no new wars involving the United States of America. And that's a fact, guys. Okay, and it's indisputable. So I would prefer.
Is the idea you team up with Russia and everything's fine?
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jayne, because if, as you say, Trump was this ally of Putin, why did Putin wait until the Biden administration to invade the Ukraine? I mean, how does that work? You
Well,
wait.
Scoop on that, Tyrone.
Now, I want to hear from Jayne in
I
terms of
don't know
why
what you're
you
saying.
wait.
What you're
All
asking.
right, guys,
Why did Jayne, it's very simple. You stipulated that Trump is an ally of Putin. So if that's the case, why did Putin wait until the Trump administration had concluded to invade the Ukraine? Why could, if he was an ally, why wouldn't he have just rolled in there
You're
uncontested?
answering your own
Trump was
question.
president? You understand the question. Why wouldn't he have just rolled in
I think
there
you're answering your own
Trump
question. He wasn't
when
going to
Trump
invade while
was president? Why wouldn't he have done it when Trump was president?
Tyrone,
Because he did not want to ruin the relationship.
right.
That had
This
to-
is- You're answering your own
Oh,
question.
Relationship.
Hold on.
Okay.
The economy.
That makes
in-
sense to you, Jimmy? I'm trying to figure this out.
You asked
Okay.
the question.
He's trying to, okay, maintain a relationship.
With Putin neutralized us towards Russia. And Russia didn't have to invade anybody. They were getting everything they wanted.
Oh, so
they
quid pro quo.
They were getting access to
Quid pro
hey,
quo.
guys,
the European market.
Makes sense.
let's have some order. Let's have some order.
So it was a situation where he had an ally, but he couldn't exploit anything from the ally. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
He didn't need to exploit it. The ally had him bent over.
To what end? What did he get out of it, Billy? You still haven't answered it.
He got out of it tremendous economic benefit, tremendous economic stability, because his oil is the critical thing for him. And he made sure that the European market for oil remained open. That's what
because Germany needed it that way because they rely to this day on natural gas and oil from Russia. You know,
Guys,
Billy, let me give you an economic lesson here. Oil is a global market, okay? It's not a national market, it's a global market. The more supply you have out there, the lower the price globally. It's a global commodity.
Hey guys, I want to say something. You know, stop. Billy,
most of that
Billy bustering. No more Billy bustering, because there's some local stories that deserve your attention. We're going to take a quick break and come back. We'll look at the mayor's race coming up in Baltimore City and other local happenings. Here's the voice of Square Off, Howard Mallison.
Oh, Square Off is certainly proving its square off today. I'm sure you've seen some of Barry Glazer's TV commercials. They're different. They get your attention. They also get you results. That's why Barry Glazer and his team, including an in-house doctor, make no apologies for getting every penny they can from the insurance companies. So when it comes to personal injury or medical malpractice, give Barry a call. There's only one choice, Barry Glazer at 410-547-8568. And there's a lot of diners in Baltimore. Baltimore is really a great diner town. And the most famous of them all are the Double T diners. TT, totally terrific. You're sure to find the best breakfast, lunch, or dinner from the Double T's enormous menu. There's Double T locations on Route 40, West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Laurel, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. Plus, try By the Docks in Middle River for their Monday night lobster specials. They're all in the Double T family. Now back to you, Richard.
All right, Howard, thank you very much. A prayer vigil was held Wednesday evening to remember the lives lost to homicides in Baltimore in 2023. The encouraging news: for the first time since 2014, the homicide rate in the city will be below 300. As of Friday morning, it was 259. There is one alarming statistic, and that is while the murders and non-fatal shootings are declining towards year's end, shootings involving juveniles are in fact up. And Jayne, I know juvenile crime is an issue that's very close to you. You want to talk about?
Well, I mean, we've had this really sharp increase in the number of young people that have been involved in gun violence. So one of the reasons that I think something that has impacted the gun violence, the overall homicide, non-fatal shooting problem is the effort, particularly it started in the Western District, which is called GVRS, Group Violence Reduction Strategy, which is a combination of both law enforcement and other services that really address those most vulnerable to getting involved in violence. It is really targeted to adults 18 to 24. And so now what is happening is that Department of Juvenile Services has started a similar program called Thrive. Folks, I think, on the west side of Baltimore, and they've been at it since September. They're dealing with youth that are already have contact with the system. And they had very promising results as of last couple of weeks ago when they reported their results at a community meeting. But this is alarming. There's no question. I had Dr. Santelises on my radio show a couple of weeks ago, and she said, we have students that hide their guns in the bushes around school so they can get them to walk home because they're afraid to walk home without a gun. This is much, much deeper
Great.
than, are we going to change this law or that law? This is a crisis of, an enormous crisis of youth that are carrying guns, using guns at the age 12, 13, 14. I mean, and using them. So, I mean, this is like an all hands on deck need to really go after what is driving this in that population.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and channel Rick Vatz here for a second. I know nobody wants to hear this, but it is true. When you start removing fathers out of the family, you break down the family nucleus. These kids right now are growing up without, if they don't care about their own lives, they're definitely not going to care about taking somebody else's. Not blaming the children on this. I think it's deplorable, the environment that they have to grow up in. But if you want to get down to brass tacks and the root cause of all this, it is a breakdown of the family. And let me tell you something, the government is complicit in that. I have a hard time. Look, I'm glad to see the numbers go down. I am. It's, I don't know who gets credit for it. Obviously, less murders, better. Richard, I think you'll appreciate this. Take shock trauma out of the equation. And if we weren't able to patch these people up the way we did, I think your homicide number would be a lot higher than it is. But it's also, as somebody that lives in the city, it's very hard to celebrate the direction that we're heading because I see it day in, day out firsthand. And I love Baltimore City, but it's hard to get behind the we've made a turn narrative.
Billy, let's hear from you and then Tyrone.
Well, it's obvious what caused the breakdown in the family to this degree. It's called mass incarceration. And that was a government program based on race. It's obvious that we've done little or nothing to stop it until the Biden administration came along. It's obvious that this is a long-term problem because if we did the optimal things that need to be done, whatever they are, it would still take 50 years to turn this situation around.
Billy, the government
Jimmy, let Billy finish.
has replaced the father. Okay?
Let Billy finish. Jimmy, let Billy finish his comment.
And
Bill.
we have a complete breakdown of the family going on in inner city communities and spreading to where poor Black people live. And there's no help in sight. We are talking about that we continue to ignore on a fundamental level. Now, let me give you an example of one thing we can do to put a dent in this. We can make sure kids stay in school until 6 o'clock in the evening when their parents come home. And we do not need teachers to populate that after school programming. We need adults with maturity who can bring not only the right stuff to these kids after school, but entertaining these children because they're more entertained about what's going on in their neighborhood than they are about what's going on in their schools. And that's a fundamental. And so why aren't we doing that? That's a doable thing we can initiate right now. And we have totally ignored that problem. And a great deal of juvenile crime occurs during the hours between 2:45 and 6 o'clock when these kids basically have no parental or adult supervision whatsoever. Tell me why we.
All right, I'm not going to dispute anything that's been said about the solutions, but one thing that we could add is a recognition that these kids, and it's not just inner city children, but more and more, you see college educated white young adults complaining about the lack of opportunity in America as the global economy evolves. So when you look at the school system, and I wish I had been able to call into the show, Jayne, and talk to Dr. Santelice, I would have asked her a question about what are they doing to increase the economic relevancy of the curriculum in these schools, so that when people come out, they are in closer proximity to being economically viable. Okay. If a kid sees, if a child sees, if some 15-year-old sees that a 24-year-old from the neighborhood has gone on and has done something productive, that's a lot closer in proximity to them than some 50-year-old who's made it. So I'm not disputing anything that's been said, but
Good
you
point.
have to understand that from an economic standpoint, a lot of youth, regardless of their color or their financial background, are feeling that America is leaving them out of the economic promise that we.
Real quick, guys, on the schools, okay? They don't force attendance. They push kids through K through 12, which is actually mandated right now, thanks to the Department of Education. There is zero accountability. I'm not blaming the teachers. I'm not even blaming the administrators, but I have a front row seat to this right now, okay? The school is such as inner city schools. Across the state, the schools are in complete shambles. There's no accountability at all. It's really, really prevalent in the inner city. You got what, 5% of the kids coming out can read and write? I mean, look, Billy, I hear you, and I don't necessarily disagree with anything that you said, but it's not the schools or the government's responsibility to raise our children. It's just not. Does that mean there's not a role for them to step in? If there's a void, I disagree. I don't, Billy. Honestly, I really. But it comes back to the parents need to be able to raise their children.
When you don't have functioning parents and they have children that are being ignored, whose responsibility is it?
Well,
No
Billy, let me add something, guys. To the extent that the state, capital S, will be responsible for people if they become welfare recipients or prisoners at some point, I do believe that the state does have some responsibility, but the parents are where the buck stops.
All right, guys.
But you can't legislate. Hold on, Billy. Billy, I'm actually going to agree with you if you allow me. You can't legislate how folk parent their children.
You can't legislate. You can't legislate morality. The reality is, the government has replaced the role of the father. You can't deny that, specifically the Democrats, and that's a big part of what has led to the decline of our society. And a lot of come out of that.
What did you just say, Jimmy?
The government has replaced the role of the father. Society has made men so insequential in our society, especially Black men, but it's not even a race thing. It goes across the spectrum. The government has wanted to replace the role of the man, and this is the consequences of it.
Okay,
Boom.
that is off the chart.
It's not. It's absolutely not.
Come on.
Absolutely.
Come on.
Why do you think we live in
Jayne, stop. Jayne, stop. Jayne, make a brief point. We've got a break. We got to talk about.
I 100% agree with Billy that the after-school period is something that is fixable. I am interested in things that are fixable in the shorter term. Obviously, we would like a stronger family structure, and we can do that too. We could have, initiatives and efforts, et cetera, that support the family. But I agree with Billy that after-school period is a critical period in terms of the development of young people.
I agree with Billy on that too.
So you look at Baltimore City's test scores and other jurisdictions throughout the state. Unless something really structural changes in the curriculum, Jayne, you're just extending.
All right.
Actually, Baltimore City scores are improving. If you look at it.
People, and hold on for a minute, Richard. This is a substantive conversation. We got this is Zoom. This is not Fox 45. This is Zoom. We can go on. Jayne, that is an argument that I hate to hear because it discounts the kids that are already matriculating through the system.
I'm not saying that. What argument?
That, yeah, well, we're improving.
I didn't say, yeah, but we're improving. I didn't say that.
Yes, we're
I said,
improving. We want to
I
take-
said, Jimmy's made a comment
You said
about
the scores are
5% at
improving,
reading.
Jayne. You said the
Baltimore
scores are
City
improving.
is seeing improvements in reading proficiency.
And that is
a
great.
good thing. We should
That's
look at
great.
why that might be happening, okay?
Absolutely.
And support that. That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely. But you also have children matriculating through
I'm
the
not saying we
system
don't.
who are not necessarily the beneficiaries of this improvement.
And that's why we
Tyrone
need to figure out
and
how to improve it.
Jayne, guys, we've missed a bunch of good stories, like six construction.
Boom! You can go on for 3 hours. This is not the studio. Come on.
We're gonna take a short break, and when we come back, I'll have a surprise. Not really. All right, go ahead, Howard, speak up.
Thanks, Rich. You know, for fine dining, special occasions with New Year's coming, you know, or just watching sports in our sports bars, Pappas should be your #1 choice. Enjoy a Pappas crab cake, or as Richard calls it, the Fab Cake, which is Oprah's favorite, or one of the many delicious choices on the Pappas menu. Plus, Pappas ships their crab cakes all over the country, with 4 locations, including their newest sports bar and restaurant in Bel Air. See you and your family at Pappas. And also, leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. Want you to know that the insurance companies cannot tell you where to take your car. Richard and his family have been taking their car to leading edge for years for automobile repairs, collision problems, or whatever. They work on all makes and models. They offer free pickup anywhere in the Baltimore area. So give Leading Edge a call at 410-433-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. Now back to you, Rich.
Well, I wanted to talk about so many other things. A year of Westmore, longer than that. A year of Baltimore State's Attorney Ivan Bates. The tragedy of losing 2 brave firefighters in 2023. Rodney Pitts, the 3rd, Engine Company 29, and Dylan Ronaldo, Engine Company 46. We had other top stories. Remembering the 6 construction workers killed on the Beltway by a speeding driver. More than 10,000 vehicles stolen in 2023. A mass shooting in Brooklyn homes. 2 dead, 28 wounded. 5 injured in a shooting at Morgan State University. Before we go, we're going to extend this a little longer because my co-moderator, Tyrone, says this is ATV. So, the mayor's race in 2024, Democrat Brandon Scott, challenged by his closest rival, former Mayor Sheila Dixon, who was leading in a recent Goucher poll, businessman Bob Wallace, and others. The mayor's getting some good innovative programs, declining numbers of murders and non-fatal shootings, first time for less than 300 murders in 14 years. What do you think about that race? And let's keep it fairly brief, because you guys have been outstanding today. Really.
I think it's Sheila's to lose. I really do. Obviously, whenever you're going up against an incumbent, that's always a challenge. I think the mayor is just missing the mark on what his message should be, which is he has no clout over him. And for a city that is pretty well known for that, Brandon Scott has no scandals in his administration. But I do believe that this is Sheila's to lose. But there's a lot of time to the primary, so we'll see.
There's a lot of time. I will give Brandon Scott credit for being a breath of fresh air in terms of the lack of corruption. It's about time Baltimore was able to enjoy that. Can you run on that? I'm not corrupt, but what you can certainly run on, whether it is of his making or not, is the fact that the murder rate is down. And that is one of the things that he campaigned on. So he can come to the table with that. But I do think, as of now, if the election were held tomorrow, I think that Brandon Scott would be a victim of the car thefts, the general idea that Baltimore is not safe.
Jayne, what do you think?
I think we have 4 months of the primary, and well, lots of things maybe can happen. Look, people are angry, frustrated everywhere. And who's that get taken out on? Whoever's in office, any
The
incumbent. And this has
Right.
been true now for a couple of years. I mean, it's just it's a really nasty society.
You should put that on a park bench, Jayne.
Baltimore, a
Going
nasty.
back,
Does anybody disagree with that?
going
No,
back to
Jayne, things have
Does
been.
anybody
coordinated.
disagree with that? We're just
Yeah.
nasty.
Things have been
We don't like
coordinated.
anything.
Yeah.
I agree.
If murders had not declined, people would be all over him. Look, you said you were going to do this and it didn't do it. He did it. He said it's going to be a 15% reduction. It's actually lower than that. I mean, he has been a consistent voice for years, ever since he's been in public office, to treat violence as a public health problem.
Yeah.
And he's doing it. He's made investments in hospital-based response, community violence intervention, the GVRS program, which we mentioned. No one has done that. But people are
Yeah.
nasty. They're
That sounds like we did.
they're impatient. Just bring the next person that we can
let's
complain
let's
about.
the differences between the two candidates from a public standpoint, and why I think this election is going to be problematic for our present mayor. Everyone knows that Sheila Dixon did a better job as mayor than he has done as mayor, and
Under
that's
different circumstances, Billy.
I understand
And
that, but
before
that's
social media.
make my point. That's the perception.
Good point, Jayne.
What is stood in her way was the gift card scandal. But people are now saying, I don't care about that anymore. She's been consistently a voice to get Baltimore better. She has dedicated her life to public service. Let's give her the shot because we don't have anything to lose anymore. Things are not satisfying to the citizens of Baltimore, that's for sure. And so that's the problem he's going to have in this election, and that's why he could very well lose.
I don't disagree with any of that.
Yeah, and Jayne,
Right.
to your point,
Final
I think
word.
a lot of people are looking at this from when she was mayor before. Circumstances have changed tremendously. Okay, and so the nostalgia vote, if you're looking for pounding for the old days of the Dixon administration, the world has changed. She's got the same issues that Brandon is
No, it's true. It's very different.
to that he's dealing with.
There's enough
Hey,
runway.
guys,
behind
guys,
I
we
don't-
want to take a moment to congratulate Mayor Brandon Scott and his new fiancee, Hannah Pugh, on the birth of their son, Charm Jamie Scott. We understand that mother, son, and dad are all doing great. You guys really gave us a very, very intelligent program today. Thank you for pointing that out, Tyrone. Thank you for your moderating, Tyrone. Jimmy, good to have you back. Jayne, love your radio program, WBAL. Saturdays, 10
11 a.m.
What, dear?
Saturdays,
sorry.
11 a.m.
Let me withdraw the dear. What, Jayne?
Saturdays at 11 a.m. In fact, I'm going to have the mayor on in a couple of weeks.
All right, good for you. Billy?
Yep.
Thank you, Billy. Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year, everybody. Be safe. We'll be
Happy New
back
Year.
as we begin our
Hey,
41st year. Happy
Hey,
New Year. What-
Thank you so much for preserving and causing Square Off to thrive again. It's a wonderful forum that stimulates people to think harder about solving these problems. And that alone makes it a vital part of Baltimore.
You had a really good couple of weeks ago.
Billy? Thanks. Thank you
Happy-
all. Folks, safe New Year's. Drive carefully. Don't drink and drive. And we'll see you next time. And once again, we square off. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.